D&D number 9, Circle of Life in Jesus' Name, Chapter 28. It's May 31st, Friday, late afternoon, Tanner home, Pine Forest, Georgia. As Keegan and Gabe drove into the driveway, they both felt that delicious feeling of finally being home. Gabe jumped out of the car and immediately offered to get the luggage. Keegan nodded and headed straight into the house. "Daddy!" little Iris squealed as he stepped through the front door, laughing at her sweet enthusiasm. He scooped her up and swung her around. He kissed her several times. Lizzie stood in the kitchen doorway watching with pleasure. Before she could move forward, Rose, Daisy, and Lily came running down the stairs, each of them throwing themselves into the arms of their father. Gabe struggled through the front door with his arms full of 2 large pieces of luggage and a giant gun bag. But he dumped it immediately when his baby sister screamed his name, running at him and reaching her little arms up to him. He scooped her up, much like his father had, and swung her around and nuzzled her cheeks. He looked up to see his sisters had backed away from his dad, and his mom moved forward. He watched, taking in the moment. He'd seen his father come home thousands of times, but he'd never really paid attention to how his parents interacted. Gabe himself was so happy when he saw Taylor after being away. It made him take note. His mom smiled, and his father moved toward her, pulled her into his arms, and held her against him. They stayed that way for several moments, and then finally he tilted her head up and kissed her so gently as if she were delicate and breakable and precious. And she was, Gabe realized. His mom had always been just his mom, strong, capable, loving, but stern. But he'd just gotten a glimpse of the sweet young girl that had made his father fall in love. His father released her, and she came straight to him. He wrapped his arms around her. "Hey, Mom, you miss me?" She laughed. "Not a bit." She took his face in her hands and kissed each cheek, and then moved her eyes to the bandage on his neck. She stroked it, then peeled it away and studied the wound. Almost immediately, her eyes filled with tears. "Aw, come on now, Mom. It's not so bad. You should have seen it a few days ago. It's almost healed now." "Is that supposed to make me feel okay, that someone tried to murder you? Someone wants you dead?" Well, yeah. I mean, here I am, and you should see the other guy." Rose snorted. Her sisters gasped, and Keegan frowned. Gabe was immediately contrite. "I'm sorry, really. I know better than to make fun of someone's death. I was just trying to lighten the mood. But, Mom, I'm okay, thanks to Dad." His mother sniffed, but couldn't stop the tears from spilling over. She turned and ran upstairs. Gabe blew out a breath, looked up at his father. Gabe blew out a breath and looked up at his father. "You and I are going to have a little talk later," Keegan said sharply as he turned and went upstairs. "Well, guess I messed up," Gabe muttered. Again. His sisters came and greeted him, hugging him and kissing his cheek and checking out his wound. "Well, the guy got what was coming to him as far as I'm concerned," Rose stated firmly. "I'm just glad Dad was able to take the shot," Lily agreed as she hugged him. "You know, the day you were born, he almost had to do the exact same thing to a man who'd kidnapped me. I mean, I don't remember, but Ty reminded me the other day when we were talking about what happened to you. He said Dad was so calm, and he talked the guy into giving up." Gabe nodded. "He was calm on the beach the other day, too. He warned the guy. He tried to get him to drop the knife. Dad even pointed his gun up and put his hands in the air, but the guy started to cut me anyway, and that was it." Daisy kissed her brother. "I'm so happy to see you, little bro." Gabe smiled. "Thanks. I'm really happy to see you all, too. Where's Violet?" "She's working. She got a job as a lifeguard at the community pool. She'll be home in about an hour or so." Gabe frowned. "She's alone?" "No, she has one of Dad's guys with her." "Which one?" "Agent Blackman, C.J. Blackman." Gabe nodded. "He's a good guy." Rose shrugged. "I guess. He is if he's as good as he looks." Lily and Daisy laughed and agreed. "He's hot," they said at the same time. New scene. Keegan stood in the bedroom doorway, gazing at his wife, the sweetest, most angelic person he'd ever known. She lay on their bed, on her side, her back to him. He came in, closed the door and locked it, and went to the bed and laid down beside her. "Elizabeth," he said softly, "talk to me, sweetheart." She rolled to her back and looked up at him. "What is there to say? Someone wants my baby boy dead. I can't stand it." He smoothed some hair from her face. "Well, you and I both know that there's evil in this world. Gabe is a shining star. He's going to be a target, always, his entire life. So we might as well get used to it." "Well, I can't stand the thought that something might happen to him." "Well, you ought to be afraid of what I'm going to do to him." "Oh, you mean because of the remark he made?" "Yes." "Well, he said he was sorry. And I can't be too mad at him because I'm glad that guy is dead. So there, I said it. I'm glad you killed him. If that makes me a horrible person, then I'm sorry." Keegan sighed. "You're not a horrible person. You're a protective mother, and that's understandable. Still, baby, we can't allow ourselves to slip into the darkness of hatred and vengeance. So forgive." "I'm trying to. Really, I am. But thinking about someone wanting to harm my baby, it makes me crazy." "Well, then don't think about it. I mean, don't dwell on those thoughts. Or try not to dwell on them. I know it's hard, but you can't live like this, all sad and fearful." She sniffed. "I know that. But lately I can't seem to help it." "Well, I'm thinking maybe your hormones are running a little wild, with the pregnancy and all." She smiled. "Maybe. Are you still happy about the baby?" "Ecstatic. Aren't you?" "Yes, but I see it's taking a toll on you, and I feel a little guilty about that." "Well, please don't feel guilty. I mean, we always use protection, and somehow I still got pregnant. Like you said before, it was meant to be." He leaned down and kissed her. "I missed you so much." "Show me how much." 30 minutes later, Lizzie stood at the bedroom door gazing at her sleeping husband. She sighed. When he was home, everything seemed easier, calmer, safer. She closed her eyes. "Thank you, Father," she whispered. "Thank you for such a wonderful husband and father. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In Jesus' name." New scene. It's May 31st, Friday, late afternoon, Stewart home, Pine Forest, Georgia. Chaz Stewart gazed at his gorgeous red-headed wife as she worked at the counter in the kitchen. She got her hair from her father, Joe Carter, who also had bright red hair. He'd gotten Lisa's mother, Louise Lewis, pregnant back when they were just juniors in high school. Joe had wanted to do right by Lou, but instead the girl had taken off, run away, desperate to get out of the hick town. Lou's mother, Miss Mattie, had received the news that Lou had a baby girl. Joe spent years searching for them, mostly for his daughter Lisa. And then, back when Lisa was 25 years old, she ditched her mother and her old life to find home. And she came home to Pine Forest, looking for her grandmother, not even knowing that her father lived here too. She'd walked into the middle of Chaz's cattle crossing, and he'd pulled her to safety. He'd been smitten from the moment he laid eyes on her. Then again, so were most men. Currently, she was humming as she arranged silk flowers in what looked like an old-fashioned miniature milk can. There were already 3 of them finished, and she stood back, looking from the one she was working on to the others, and she moved her hips back and forth as she eyed the arrangements, and Chaz couldn't resist. He moved forward and put his hands on her waist. "Oh," she said, startled by his touch. He leaned forward and nuzzled her neck. "Hey, Red." She sighed. That feels nice. Or we can go upstairs and I'll make you feel even better." "Ooh, Dad," 12-year-old Matthew complained as he entered the kitchen. Chaz chuckled. "Hey, guys, do you think these look the same?" "Yep," Matt said quickly. "Can I have a snack?" "I swear you are always hungry," Lisa said. "Dinner is in about an hour. Have a piece of fruit." "Aw, come on, Mom." "Matt, have a piece of fruit," Lisa said firmly. "Dad, can I have—" "Boy, you better think about what you're about to say," Chaz said quickly. Matt stopped and nodded. "Yes, sir." He grabbed an apple and started out. "Hold it," Chaz commanded. He didn't have to say anything else. Sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. Lisa smiled. You're forgiven. Go tell your brother to finish up in the barn. Dinner's in an hour. Yes, ma'am, he called as he left. So, Lisa asked Chaz, so you want me to punish him? No, silly. So do you think they look alike? Let's see. I think the one you're working on looks better. Why? It's brighter. I think it has more yellow flowers and those have more white. She nodded. I agree. How many more of those do you have to make? 25. Seriously? She sighed. Yep. I figure if I make 5 a day for the next 5 days, I'll be okay. You want to help me? Desperately. She laughed. That's okay. I can do it. Besides, you and Jake and John need to finish the barn. If you guys get that done, then when everyone else arrives a week from next Friday, the florist, the chairs, the tables, there'll be a place to put them. The florist? Then what's all this for? Well, the florist will do the real flowers. These are to go on all the tables to be taken home as gifts for the attendees. But the barn has to be done, and all the tulle and ribbons up, and not one spider anywhere, and that cracked window fixed, and the torches put in along the path to the barn, and the garden greenery over the barn door, and, honey, I have the list. It's all under control. Don't you worry, Red. We got this. She sighed. Thanks, my big, handsome, efficient cowboy. He spun her around and moved close. I love when you call me that. I love when you act like that. Like what? A big and handsome and efficient cowboy. He laughed, emphasis on efficient. But let me ask you this. Are you planning on coming to see the boys play ball tomorrow morning? Yes, it's part of my efficient schedule. 2 boys playing baseball, Erlen, dance classes, and a daughter getting married. I don't know how it's going to work, but we'll get it all in somehow. Chaz bent his head and kissed her. Can you believe it's been almost exactly 22 years since you and I got engaged? And now here we are getting ready to marry off our daughter. It feels weird. I know, it's gone by so fast. Too fast if you ask me. I need more time for us to be a family, Lisa said. Baby, we're still a family. And since there's going to be a new baby, we'll be a young family for a very long time. Lisa put her hands on her abdomen, checking to see if there was a swell yet. It might be her imagination, but it did feel larger. How are you feeling? Okay, not too bad. Not as bad as poor Lizzie, bless her heart. Yeah, I'm glad Keegan's back, for both their sakes, Chaz agreed. Both? Yeah, well, I know she's having a hard time, but being away from the people you love most in the world, especially when you're worried about some nut job trying to hurt them, it can do a man in. Lisa nodded. Did I tell you how proud I am of you and John going the extra mile to take care of the Tanners? He smiled. You just did. So what's for dinner? I smell something delicious. You smell summer squash cheeseburger casserole. She started gathering up the floral supplies. I'd better finish this later. Matt might starve to death if dinner's late. Then the trip upstairs is definitely off? Postponed, cowboy. Patience. New scene. It's May 31st, Friday evening. Stewart's Stables, Pine Forest, Georgia. Hey, Bugs. Startled, Lena whirled around. Oh, Jake, you scared me. He frowned. I see that. You feeling a little skittish? She shrugged as she finished brushing Sugar's mane. Maybe, really just deep in thought. He came to her and touched her hand. Is there something wrong? She shrugged. He smiled. Second thoughts? She turned and smiled. No, of course not, she said quickly. She eyed him. You? Absolutely not. When I make a decision, it's made. No going back, she asked. Nope. We are getting married in 2 weeks and 1 day. You don't think you're too young, she asked. His brow furrowed. I'm older than you. Do you think I'm too young? She shrugged. Maybe. He swallowed hard, his brows raised. What are you saying, Bugs? It's just that I've been thinking. What if you get a little older and a little more mature and realize you've made a mistake? So she was having second thoughts. He'd been kidding, and this hurt. He drew a deep breath. Well, I thought and prayed about us getting married. I thought hard. I prayed hard. We've prayed together. We felt like this is what we're supposed to do. How can you think I'll regret it later? Well, it's just that it all happened so fast. Lena led Sugar to her stall. Jake closed the stall door and took her hand. Yeah, it all happened fast. And that's exactly what your father said, that I was moving too fast. But I convinced him otherwise. She was silent as she thought. Lanebug, if you don't want to marry me, you tell me now. Right now. I do. I'm just worried about you. What if 5 years down the road you realize you don't really love me anymore? Well, don't you think I know my own mind? She didn't answer. Okay, you're killing me here, but I'll play the game a minute. Let's say that's exactly what happens. 5 years from now, I think I don't love you anymore. What will I do? Well, I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd tell Satan to get gone. I'd pray for forgiveness. I'd pray to remember the love I had for you. I'd do everything I could to save the marriage because I won't divorce you. When I make a vow to you and to God, I'll keep it, period. You must know that about me. Bugs, you and I, we have the best examples in the world of how to have a good marriage, a good relationship. If we have troubles, which we probably will, we'll go to our parents or to a counselor or to our pastor, but I swear to you our marriage will last forever. Or until He stopped and shook his head. Her eyes filled and he took her in his arms. I'm so scared, Jake. I love you so much and I'm so scared that you won't come back to me. Oh, come on, we don't even know where I'm going to go, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. You told me you knew and understood this is who and what I am. Were you just saying that and didn't really mean it? No, I meant it. Do you want me to change my path in life? Because as I said before, I'd do that for you. Yes, I do. She closed her eyes and shook her head. But I don't. I want you to reach for all you ever wanted to be, and I don't want to be responsible for holding you back. Well, then, logically, it seems we're at an impasse. What do we do? We're not at an impasse. I truly want you to be what and who you are, she said softly. I respect that person. I admire that person. I love that person, the person you are. Well, I'm a Marine. I'm going to be in dangerous situations. I love you, Bugs, and I don't want you to have to worry about me, but I have to go when they call. We either stick this out together or separately. Either way, it'll be difficult. If you don't marry me, you'll still worry and wonder about what's happening while I'm gone. Wouldn't it be better to do this difficult thing together? I mean, I know it would mean everything to me to know that you, my beautiful wife, my feisty, strong Milena, are holding things together here, doing her thing, and will be here for me when I get back. She nodded. I will be. Well, then that means we are getting married, right? Yes, that was really never in question. I was just thinking about all these things, going round and round inside my own head. He pushed her back against the wall and put his hands against the wall on either side of her. Well, get out of your head. We're about to have the happiest day of our lives, and there's a lot to do. Like what? Like right now, you have to kiss me. She smiled. Well, that's easy enough. She lifted her face, and his head dipped, and their lips met. When he finally pulled away, he put his hands on either side of her face. Breathing hard, he shook his head in awe. 1 week from tomorrow night, I'm going to take you to our hotel suite and make love to you all night long. She moaned softly at the thought. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. He smiled. You have? Mm-hmm. Lying next to you, knowing that you don't have to go home, knowing that we can stay together and sleep together. Well, there's not going to be a lot of that going on. She giggled and then frowned. What if I get, what if I get weird? Weird? Like, what if I have a flashback to, you know? He nodded in understanding. Well, first, I'm supposed to tell you to say the words. She sighed. What if I have a flashback to when Brett raped me? He looked deeply into her eyes. I won't hurt you, Bugs. If you have trouble with it, I'll stop. We'll talk. I'll hold you. I won't force you. The term is making love. Making love is not forcing someone so that I can feel physical pleasure. How short-lived would that kind of pleasure be? You don't do that to someone you love. She thought about what he just said and realized that those were some of the most manly and beautiful words a guy had ever spoken, and her heart swelled. Do you trust me to protect you and take care of you, he asked. She nodded. Yes, I really do. Good, he said as he kissed her again, softly, gently, with every bit of love he felt. He lifted his head and smiled at her labored breathing. He stroked a finger down her adorable pixie face, but frowned when she frowned. What now? She shrugged. I was just wondering about Brett. What about him? What made him do what he did? Like, he did it without even thinking he'd get caught. He didn't change clothes. He didn't wash his hands. He didn't think about the fact that anyone could drive up any second. It was broad daylight. I mean, how cocky is that? Well, it's more like stupid. And he did try to get away with it. He tried to leave the state. He was blinded by his rage. He wasn't thinking straight. His anger took over and he just wanted to hurt you. But why? He told you why. He believed that you hurt him, that you led him on and teased him and then didn't put out. I'm so dumb. I didn't realize all those times I went out with him that all he wanted was for me to put out, as you say. I thought, that he enjoyed my company. Well, sometimes there are guys who get focused on the conquest and sex is the reward. Their thinking is skewed. Not all men are like that. It can come from not having a father in their lives to teach them how to be a man or from some trauma in their lives. Brett had all of that. His mother died. His siblings moved away. His father worked all the time. Lena sighed. I almost feel sorry for him. You're kidding. She shrugged. What will happen to him? Well, funny you should ask. Your dad and I were going to tell you the news tonight after dinner. What news? Well, let's wait for your dad to be present. You're my husband, or are about to be. You tell me. He frowned. Okay, but I won't have all the answers. She nodded. Understood. Now tell me. Well, the county has offered Brett a plea deal. If he pleads no contest, they will lessen his sentence. No contest, that's like a guilty plea, right? Yes, and he will get prison time. But if he actually pleads guilty, he'd get between 20 to 50 years. Same if he were to plead not guilty and it goes to trial, because presenting all the evidence would probably get him a harsher sentence because it's irrefutable and he messed you up pretty bad. But a trial is expensive for this little county, and so they offered him a lighter sentence for a plea. Brett's attorney grabbed that up because he knows there's too much evidence against him and he'll do a lot of time. So what is the deal being offered, and do I or we have a say in it? Well, the deal being offered is 10 years in prison and 10 years probation, and the deal will be offered no matter what we say. However, the judge can deny the deal if we make a big enough stink and show it's not in the best interest of us or of the community. Can the judge change the deal? Like, can he decide to go 5 years instead of 10? That's a good question. We'll need to ask about that. What are your thoughts? Lena asked. Well, my thoughts are a little messed up. There's this side of me that wants him to pay with his life. And then there's this part of me that wants it to go to trial. And then there's the side of me, the best side of me, who follows the teachings of Jesus. And that scripture in Matthew chapter 5 keeps coming to me. He stopped and pulled out the Bible app on his phone and read, You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. He looked up. As he hung on the cross, Jesus asked God to forgive the people who were killing him. I mean, that's some lesson. As a man, My first priority is to love God, and my second is to keep my family safe because I know my calling is to be a warrior for righteousness. So, you see, my thoughts are all jumbled and require some thoughtful prayer. Oh, thank you for sharing that with me, Jake. Yep, so do you have any strong opinion? She sighed. Well, I know it sounds crazy, but I kind of feel sorry for him. He messed up, he got angry, and he ruined his whole life. He didn't kill me, though he certainly could have, so he shouldn't have to pay for the rest of his life. Maybe with the right kind of counseling, along with prayers, he could still make something of himself. Jesus said to pray for your enemies, so I will. He smiled at her. You make me want to be a better man. She gave a soft laugh. You make me want to be a better woman, but I'm probably about to change your opinion because as far as the plea deal, I think 10 years is fair, and I think 5 years is scary. Scary, what do you mean? She shrugged. I mean, scary for me. Will he have learned his lesson in 5 years, or will he still be angry? Will he still be young and strong enough to come after me again, like in revenge? Is that even where his mind is at? Well, I don't want you to be afraid, Bugs, but if you're worried about him being strong enough when he gets out, that doesn't matter if it's 5 years or 25 years. He'll be strong enough. She nodded. So, how can we find out what his state of mind is? I mean, if he's all sorry and stuff, I'd go with the plea. But if he still wants to hurt me, it needs to go to trial. Jake nodded. Okay. We'll talk to your dad and to Justin and see what's what. Maybe we can ask for a meeting with Brett so that we can see where his head is at. Her face paled. Not with you, but Justin and me and your dad. I mean, they may not even allow something like that, but we can ask. He took her hand and kissed it. We'll figure it out. Come on, your mom invited me to dinner and I'm starving. New scene. June 1st, Saturday morning, Tanner home, Pine Forest, Georgia. Gabe woke early. Thinking he was the only one up, he dressed, grabbed his gun bag, and quietly headed downstairs. But when he entered the kitchen, he saw his father pouring hot water from the tea kettle into a mug. Hey, Dad, I thought I'd beat everyone up today. Keegan smiled. Well, Grandmaster Keno gave me some special tea that's supposed to help your mom with her morning sickness, so we're going to test it out. Well, I hope it works. Me too. Shelley swears by it. Are you off to shoot? Yes, sir. You want to come? Can't today. I've been gone all week and have a lot to do for your mom and for work and for Jake and Lena. Gabe reached into the refrigerator and pulled out a gallon of milk and a plastic container filled with breakfast muffins. Well, I can stay home and help you this morning, but Jake has already claimed me to help him finish cleaning the barn today. Well, it looks like the barn is the main attraction today for us all, 'cause that's where I'll be too. But you go ahead and shoot first. Did you give your itinerary to Agent Dalton? Yes, sir, Gabe said, as he took a huge bite of the muffin and chased it with the milk. He said he'd be out front. What other agents are watching over our family? I know Agent Blackman was with Violet yesterday. Who else? Agent Rogers and Agent Austin. I figure 1 for you personally and 3 for the rest of the family. He smiled. And then there's me and you. Gabe grinned. Me, yeah, I hope I can help if I'm ever needed. I have every confidence in you. Gabe put the muffins away, downed a second glass of raw milk, set the glass in the sink, and turned to leave. So, guess I'll see you in a little while. Gabe nodded as he poured honey into the tea. Be safe. Yes, sir. Gabe opened the front door and smiled at Agent Dalton. Good morning, Gabe, the agent greeted. Let's go see what you got. Gabe smiled. Agent Dalton had never seen him shoot. At the Stewart Ranch shooting range, Gabe was warmly greeted by Jake, Lena, Chaz, John, Charlie, and Matthew. Everyone wanted to see the wound on his neck, and everyone expressed how grateful they were that he was still alive. Y'all remember Agent Dalton, right? They all shook his hand, and everyone started removing guns and rifles from their cases and bags and setting out ammo and calling dibs on who gets to go first. Once everyone had a turn, including Agent Dalton, Chaz and John took their leave, saying they just had way too much to do for the wedding. Lena and Gabe and I are going to shoot one more round, Jake said. I am? Lena asked. Yes, we're going to practice you drawing your weapon. Drawing, you mean like from my hip? Yes. I don't usually carry on my hip. I know. You usually carry your firearm in the glove box of your car, but that doesn't really help you, he said dryly. I want you to get used to carrying either on your hip or a shoulder holster as soon as you turn 21. Well, that's not very attractive, Gabe snorted. Well, Bugs, it would have been ultra attractive had you had it on your hip the day Brett drove up to the lake. She frowned and then nodded. I want you to watch Gabe draw and fire, real time first, and then we'll ask him to go step by step. Gabe? Gabe pushed the holster down into the waistband of his jeans, chambered the weapon, and pushed it into the holster. Why did you chamber it? Lena asked. Isn't that dangerous? I mean, carrying around a chambered weapon seems dangerous. Well, when things go bad, those few seconds it takes to chamber the weapon can make the difference between life and death, Gabe explained. Jake nodded. He's right. But if you're not comfortable with that, we'll keep working on it until you are. We also don't want you to shoot yourself. I've taken 2 gun courses. I know how to shoot, Lena said. Baby, I know you do. And by the way, it actually is attractive. But you told me you don't carry because you're not comfortable. Let's work on getting you comfortable. They watched Gabe draw and fire and were mesmerized by his speed and accuracy. And then they went over the procedure step by step. And by the time they were finished, Lena was already feeling better about carrying a loaded weapon on her hip. And they called an end to the drill. It was time to get to work. New scene. It's June 2nd, early Sunday morning, Tanner home, Pine Forest, Georgia. Dressed and ready for church, Gabe galloped down the stairs and poked his head into the kitchen. Morning, Mom. Morning, Dad. Hey, Lily, Daisy. He smiled and came into the room when Iris reached for him. Hey, sweet girl, he said, kissing both her fat cheeks. He looked up. I'm off to see Miss Maddie, but I'll be at church on time. Keegan nodded and Lizzie smiled. Good, honey, Lizzie said. The girls and I will do the same after church. We're going to have lunch over at the inn, so don't make any plans. Gabe frowned. Mom, I really need to go see Peyton after church. Avery called me and there's a problem. Can I be late to lunch? Yes, Keegan said, but try not to be too late. And bring Peyton's mom and brother with you, Lizzie added. I haven't seen her in a while. Gabe smiled. That would be great. Thanks, Mom, Dad. This problem Avery told you about, Keegan began. Can you share it with us? I was going to when I get all the facts. I might need your help. You'll have it. So, Mom, Dad, do you think Aunt Jody is right about Miss Maddie? Lizzie sighed. It doesn't matter if she's right or wrong, though hopefully wrong. But when Miss Maddie told Jody she dreamed that her husband came to her, Jody says the feeling was so strong that Maddie will be called to heaven soon. She didn't want to say anything at first, but then she thought, what if it happens? And God gave us this opportunity to say all the things we need to say to her, and we didn't take advantage of it. Then what? Hopefully, she's wrong. Hopefully, Maddie will live to be 100 or more. But still, shouldn't we live like each day is the last? Show all the people we love kindness and care and love and compassion every day? Yeah, but sometimes there's not enough time in the day to get to everyone, Gabe said. Exactly, Keegan said, so we listen to God's promptings, and we make time for the ones he nudges us toward. Gabe nodded. Got it. Does Agent Dalton have your itinerary? Yes, sir. He's outside waiting on me. You know, he doesn't have to wait outside. Tell him when he gets here from now on to come inside. I think you make him nervous, Dad. Keegan frowned. Well, we need to remedy that. Yes, sir. See y'all at church. He kissed Iris once more and left. Hey, Agent Dalton, Gabe greeted as he jumped into the passenger side of his own truck. Dalton nodded. Dad says to come in the house from now on. Will do. Just didn't want to have to disturb the family when it's so early. Oh, we get up really early, so no prob. They drove the half-mile to the inn and parked. Agent Dalton got out of the truck, scanned the area, and nodded, and Gabe emerged, and they headed into the inn. Morning, Aunt Jody, Gabe said. He went straight to the kitchen. Hey, Miss Maddie. Good morning, my handsome boy, she said as she hugged him. I'm so happy you came to help me this morning. I hope you like blueberry muffins because that's what you're going to be in charge of. First, put on this apron and then get those bowls down from here. Gabe put on the apron and reached up high for the bowls. He smiled at the other kitchen workers whom he'd known all his life. They didn't always work here at the inn, but they always lived in Pine Forest. 2 of them were about to be seniors at the high school and were working their summer job. The others were adults. Now, Miss Mattie said, we're going to need 6 cups of flour and 3 cups of sugar, and you work on that and let me know when you're ready for the next step. Gabe nodded. She smiled up at him. He smiled at her. She was a tiny lady, maybe only about 5 feet tall, if that. She was in her late 80s. She seemed strong and capable. Her back was straight, her eyes sharp, her smile always in place. She was pure sweetness. Miss Mattie, tell me how you met your husband. She giggled like a little girl. We met each other in school, 1st grade. He said he had his eye on me the whole time. We finally went on a date when we were high school freshmen. He was so cute. He looked a lot like you, only his hair was lighter. She sighed. We went on a picnic at Wilson's Lake, and he kissed me that very first night. She was silent a moment, like she was seeing it all happen again. Lord have mercy, I miss him so much. She pulled up the edge of her apron and dabbed at her eyes. Look at me going on. Now, you stop distracting me or we'll never get finished before church. Gabe laughed. Yes, ma'am. Just one more thing. What's that, handsome boy? I just want you to know that you're like my real grandma, and I love you so much. Aw, there you go again. She dabbed at her eyes. Thank you, Gabriel. I love you too, sweetie. Gabe's eyes also misted as he felt overwhelmed with compassion for the amazing woman. New scene. June 2nd. It's Sunday afternoon. Murphy home, Pine Forest, Georgia. Agent Dalton pulled up in front of the small brick 3-bedroom home where Peyton Murphy lived with his mother and 14-year-old brother, Lucas. The grass was neatly trimmed, but the house itself looked run down. Mrs. Murphy's old blue Corolla sat in the driveway. It had a dent in the right fender from when Peyton ran into a brick mailbox. Gabe remembered Peyton saying that they had insurance but didn't get it fixed because he didn't have the money for the deductible. Gabe had offered to pay the deductible, but Peyton wouldn't hear of it. Gabe understood. He hoped somehow he could get past that pride today and fix the much bigger problem that was lurking. Gabe knocked on the door and Peyton answered. Hey, man, so good to see you. Like, alive. Gabe grinned. Thanks, Peyton. Feels like you really mean that. Peyton chuckled. So, what's up? Why the surprise visit? Are you going to invite me in or what? Oh, sure, let's go back in my room. Gabe stepped in. Hey, Gabe, Lucas said. How's your neck? He touched it. It's good. Miss Murphy smiled at him from where she stood in the kitchen. Hello, Gabe. I heard what happened, and I'm so glad you're okay. Thanks, Mrs. Murphy. So, one of the reasons I stopped by is to ask you and Peyton and Lucas to come to lunch over at the inn. Awesome, Lucas said. Ms. Murphy frowned. Is it a special occasion? Gabe smiled charismatically. It will be if you guys come. Peyton snorted. Ms. Murphy smiled. Well then, aren't you the charmer? No, really, when I told my mom I was coming over to talk to Peyton, it reminded her that she hasn't seen you in a long time, and she told me to ask if you would come. She hasn't been feeling too well lately, but she's feeling a little better now. Yeah, Peyton told me your mother is expecting. She glanced at her watch. It's already noon. What time? Well, lunch is at 1, but come earlier if you can. Well, that sounds fun. Lucas, change your shirt, and I'll get dressed. Peyton? I'll get ready. Gabe, come on back. Mrs. Murphy, why don't you and Lucas go on ahead in your car and Peyton can ride with me and Agent Dalton, who's waiting outside, 'cause we have some guy plans to make. Okay, but you guys don't be too long. No, ma'am, we won't. Peyton and Gabe went back to Peyton's room. It was small, half the size of Gabe's room. It held a twin bed, a dresser, and a storage tote that served as a nightstand with a small lamp on it. The bed was unmade. Peyton's black steakhouse pants and shirt were on the floor. A pair of baseball cleats lay in front of the closet, along with some dirty socks, and Gabe sat down on the lumpy bed. So what's up, really? Peyton asked as he pulled the dirty T-shirt over his head and searched through his closet. I just wanted to talk to you about when you go to school and stuff, because I'm leaving at the end of August to do Ameritech, and I know you're leaving before that, right? Maybe. He picked up a shirt from the floor of his closet and smelled it. What do you mean, maybe? You have a baseball scholarship. You are going to college. Don't even try to tell me that you're not. Keep your voice down, please. Sorry. Finding the shirt he wanted, he pulled it over his head. Look, I'm not sure if I can afford to go. Peyton, it's a full ride, right? Yes. He sat down and pulled on some socks and athletic shoes. For UGA, that means everything, even living expenses, Gabe said. I know that because I looked it up. Well, I know that sounds good, but there's stuff you don't know about. Well, tell me about it, Gabe prodded. Peyton heaved a sigh and glanced toward his door, then back at Gabe. He sat down next to him, his hands on his knees, his head down. Look, I know that you know we don't have a lot of money. My dad left my mom when I was 11. I haven't seen him since. I don't even know if he's still alive. Gabe shook his head. I know. I'm sorry. Well, the thing is, he never paid my mom any child support, and she doesn't make enough at her teaching job to support us. So, she works at the motel up on the highway, cleaning rooms on the weekend. Gabe nodded. Right. I know. But that's not enough. So I work all I can, and what I make pays the power bill, the water bill, and buys gas for the car. And there's never any extra. So if something breaks, it stays broken. So you tell me, Gabe, how can I go off to school and just leave her? You going off to school could be your big break, and could be the best thing you could do for her. I swear, Gabe, I get that. But until that happens, who's going to take care of things? It's like I'm between this rock and a hard place, and I don't know how to solve the problem. Why didn't you come to me? Geez, Peyton, I'm your best friend. You know you know that I'd help. You have to know. What? You mean ask you for money? You're my best friend, and so you have to know that I couldn't do that. I've turned you down enough times for you to know that. I know, but this is different. This is your whole life we're talking about. Swallow your pride and let me help. Damn it, bro, you can pay me back if that makes you feel better. A full baseball scholarship is a big deal, especially when you have the fourth most home runs in the country and the second highest batting average and second highest speed, and you are going to go all the way, Peyton. And when you do, you can buy your mom a new house, a new car, anything she needs. She won't even have to work anymore. You have to do this. You have to let me give you some money. I can't do it. I want to. I really do, if only to shut you up, but I can't borrow the money. It puts a darkness around the whole scholarship thing, like pressure. It'll psychologically mess me up. I know you get that. It's like a jinx on something. Gabe blew out a breath and nodded his head. Yep, I get it. He sat quietly a moment and closed his eyes. Father, help me. Help us figure this out. Immediately, a thought came into his head, and he took out his phone and texted Mark Adams. Can I add another category to my foundation, and if so, how fast can I access the funds? Mark answered him almost immediately. Yes, we can add anything you like, but it's going to take a few more weeks before the foundation is completely set up and legal, and then we can make the changes. What's the hurry? Is there something I can personally help with? I'll let you know, Gabe texted back. Thanks. Thumbs up. You want to tell me what that's all about? Peyton asked. You're not going to borrow the money, but a large grant has just been awarded to you. I guarantee it will be enough to take care of your family. A grant? What exactly does that mean? Well, it's not a scholarship and it's not a loan. It's money, free and clear, granted to you on your merit due to your hard work, excellence in athletics, and community service. How much do you actually contribute to the household income each month? He shrugged. About $500 a month. Oh, well, we're good because this grant will be awarded at $1,000 a month. That is, as long as you're in school, Gabe grinned. Peyton sat still, going over what Gabe was saying and letting it sink in. He chuckled. You think you're smart, don't you? Not me. I prayed, and the idea popped into my head. You're talking about using your foundation money? Yes. Is this legal? Of course. The text was to my lawyer. But won't people be mad because I'm like your best friend? Well, right now, you're the first person to receive the grant. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no one more worthy, and there's going to be a lot more grants available for athletes of merit who need a helping hand just like you. This is going to be so cool. Will the money be available by the time I have to leave? It'll be available as soon as you report to school. Come on, Peyton. There's just no way you can turn this down. Peyton nodded, a smile spreading across his lips. I guess you're right. And when you make it big, you can pay it forward. Peyton smiled, and he stood. You are the best friend anyone could ever have. Gabe stood and held out his hand. Peyton grabbed it, shook it, and pulled him in for a giant hug. If there is anything I can ever do for you, you'll call me? Of course. Now let's go eat. New scene. June 2nd, Sunday afternoon, Pine Forest Country Inn, Pine Forest, Georgia. Gabe stood off to one side of the large dining room watching his mother, with Iris on her lap, converse with Mrs. Murphy, his sisters taking turns hugging and loving on Miss Mattie, Jake doting on Lanebug, and his father talking to the Apples and Stewarts. Charlie Stewart and Lucas Murphy were teasing little Erlyn, and young Matthew was heaping his plate with more food. Agents Dalton and Austin were talking to Peyton at the far end of the giant table as they ate their dessert. And there were a few inn guests, too, who were conversing and eating and apparently loving being part of the big extended family. It was one of the attractions of the inn. Gabe smiled. He loved these people. How was he going to leave them come the end of August? He was understanding how Peyton had been feeling, thinking of not being there for his family. Of course, Gabe's family wasn't depending on him, but God was. He'd been given so much, and God expected him to do something with what he'd been given. He hoped he was equal to the task. He looked up when his father placed a hand on his shoulder. Is everything okay? Yes, sir, but I want to talk to you about the Murphys when we get home. Okay. Is it a private conversation, or can the ladies listen in? They can listen in. They might have some ideas to help. Okay, then, we'll talk tonight at dinner. Dad? Yeah? When I go away in August, are you going to miss me? Keegan blinked several times as he looked at his son. Gabe smiled. Is that a hard question? Keegan sighed. If I could, I would turn back the clock about 18 years and raise you all over again. And I know someone who wants that even more than me. The thought that you won't be in my home when I return from work each day, that there are no more high school games to attend, no one to ask me how to be a man anymore, it's really sad. Am I going to miss you? You can't even fathom how much. His voice choked with emotion. But it doesn't serve me or anyone to grieve over it. It's the circle of life. It seems like just a few years ago I was leaving my parents to be a Marine. I didn't think about it that much, not from their perspective. But now, I know how hard it must have been for them. You, on the other hand, are thinking about it. You're being mindful, aware of the present moment, and that is a level of maturity guys your age usually haven't reached. Gabe shrugged. Well, maybe it's because I've had my life threatened a few times. It makes me appreciate every minute. Maybe, but son, I hope you know how much we love you and how much we'll miss you. From you stomping down the stairs to eating us out of house and home to arguing with your sisters or leaving messes everywhere you go. How can you miss that? Oh, it's part of your charm. Gabe's phone vibrated and he pulled it from his pocket. He smiled. Hey, Tay, hold on a minute. Keegan smiled and nodded. Go ahead. We'll talk at home. Gabe walked outside the large French doors to the back veranda. Hey, I'm back. Hey, so are you guys at your lunch at the inn? Yep, but it's pretty much over. What are y'all doing? We just got back from going to church at the Big Canyon Church of Christ. It was cool. It's a big congregation. My dad was asked to speak, and he did a pretty good job. I met about 30 kids my age, but I'll never remember all their names. They were nice. Any guys? Yeah, mostly guys. Taylor giggled. Are you jealous? Only that they got to see your beautiful self, and I'm here without you. Aw, poor baby. Well, if it makes you feel any better, a bunch of girls asked me why you didn't come. Nope, I don't feel any better. The only thing that would make me feel better is if you could magically appear in front of me right now. Well, I can make that happen in about 10 days. I can't wait. Whoa, well, look at that. What? What do you see? I'm walking out by the fence where you can see my house, and I looked over toward the pecan grove, and I see Violet and Agent Blackman standing on the backside of a tree, holding hands. Really? That's like against the rules, right? Well, yes, it is. What else are they doing? Well, it looks like they're just talking. Oh, wait. Shoot. He put his hand on her face. Oh, man, He what? Freak. He just kissed her. Are you going to tell? No, of course not. You know, there's like a sibling code. Yep, but remember that code ends if the sibling in question is in danger. Well, the only thing in danger for Violet is her heart. But for Blackman, he's in danger of losing his job. And maybe his life, Gabe joked, thinking of his father's reaction if he knew. New scene. Still June 2nd, Sunday evening, Tanner home, Pine Forest, Georgia. Keegan looked around the dinner table at 7 of the most beautiful females that ever existed, and at the young man who was currently taking the world by storm. His eyes met his wife's, and he winked at her, which made her blush. Keegan, Lizzie said, is there something on your mind? Always. Ladies, this looks delicious. We are so blessed. Whose turn is it to say the blessing? Iris, several people answered. Iris, who do you want to help you say the blessing? Lizzie asked, though everyone knew who she would pick. Gabe, she answered in her tiny munchkin voice. Gabe chuckled. Okay, little flower, put your hands like this. She folded her hands together. Say, Dear Father, Dia Fada, thank you for our food. Thank you for food. She looked up at her brother with a frown. You forgot to say so much. Everyone giggled. Oh, Gabe said, sorry. Okay, say thank you so much for our food. She repeated the phrase, adding in even more so's. Please bless it. Please bless it. In Jesus' name, amen. In Jesus' name. And I love you, Jesus, so much. Amen. There were murmurs of awes and a few sniffles. Let's eat before it gets cold, Lizzie said as she lifted a bowl of mashed potatoes and passed it around. I like it cold, Iris announced, making everyone laugh again. Gabe heaped his plate and dug in as usual. He glanced over at Violet. She acted normal, like she wasn't just making out with the man being paid to protect her. Giving her the benefit of the doubt, he was pretty sure this wasn't a casual thing for her. She wouldn't kiss just anyone, and knowing the severity of the consequences, what was going on between her and Blackman must be serious. Violet looked up and caught his eye, and she smiled at him. He smiled back. Maybe he would talk to her later and let her know that he knew. He wondered if Rose knew when he glanced at her. She was looking right at him. Her raised eyebrows and haughty expression told him that she did know and that he'd better not tell. He smiled. So, Gabe, what is it you want to talk about? Keegan asked. The Murphys. I want to help them, but I don't know how to go about it without, embarrassing them. Keegan nodded. Well, that's a hard one. But before we figure out how to get them to accept your help, tell me what exactly do you think they need help with? Well, first, I had to convince Peyton today to actually make use of his scholarship. Gabe went on to describe the whole conversation, the problem, and the solution he'd come up with. Keegan nodded. That was a good job. And now, knowing how difficult things are for them, you want to do more. Yes, sir. Like, their car is all beat up, and I heard Peyton telling someone that the AC in the car is out, so they have to roll the windows down and go real fast. I mean, he was making a joke of it, but the AC really isn't working. And then just today, Mom says Mrs. Murphy said her oven isn't working right. Right, Mom? Yes, I offered to have you come look at it, Keegan, and she said she'd let me know. Keegan nodded. Go on, Gabe. Well, earlier today, Peyton told me that when things break, there is no extra money to fix it. And I saw firsthand that Peyton has hardly any clothes, and I'm guessing it's the same for Lucas. And they don't have a dad to take care of them, and their mom has to work 2 jobs. How can I fix this stuff, Dad? Well, first you'll have to raise money. That money can be used to fix the AC in the car and fix the oven and even buy clothes. And if you raise enough, you might be able to go above and beyond and just buy them a new car and find out where else they might need some help. Well, how do I raise the money? Keegan frowned as he thought. Well, if I were to give you $1,000 seed money, how would you use it to organize an event that might raise money? An event? Like a bake sale? But that wouldn't make a big enough profit. Do you bake? No, sir, but I can charm a bunch of ladies into baking a bunch of stuff for me, he said with a grin. Keegan chuckled along with everyone else. Oh, I bet you can. But let's put that on a back burner. I want you to think bigger and think of things that would use your actual knowledge and skills and contacts to make it happen. Gabe shook his head. My mind is a blank. Well, what do you think you're good at? Rose questioned. Gabe shrugged. The usual. Sports, martial arts, shooting. Oh, you're good at a lot more than that, little brother, Lily said. Like what? You can dance. You're super strong in the weight room, Daisy said. You look good, and you can talk anyone into anything, and you're super smart, Rose added. Well, thanks y'all for the compliments, but I still don't see how to use that stuff to raise money. Okay, well, I take it back, the part about you being smart, Rose said. Violet sat up. Think back to when you did the mini mart. Do you realize how much money was made on that thing, Gabe? Just a little martial arts tournament put on in 1 week's time made hundreds of thousands of dollars, all put into the Heal the World Foundation. Well, that's all cool, but my last name is not Kino. Oh my goodness, Gabe, wake up, Rose said. Your name is Gabe Tanner, and at the moment that name is a hot commodity. Use it. Gabe sat silently, chewing his food and thinking hard. Contests are the way to go, Lizzie put in. When Maddie held that cooking contest at the inn all those years ago, she took in over $10,000 from the contest itself, and the magazine that held exclusive rights paid another large sum, though I'm not sure how much. Contests, yes, Violet said. The possibilities are limitless, Daisy said. A martial arts contest sponsored by Apple Martial Arts, who is already growing by leaps and bounds because of your little demonstration, Lily said. Or a shooting contest, Rose added. There are a whole lot of gun enthusiasts around here who love to do that, and you could use your talk smarts to get the big shooting range over at Eagle Eye Gun Club to sponsor you. Or, Daisy began, a kids' invitational baseball tournament. I bet you could get the mayor to host it at the rec fields as long as he gets some credit and some of the money. Or a dance contest, Violet added. If you got Taylor to come dance with you, people would come out of the woodwork just to see you two dance in person. And trained dancers would come to do their thing. Well, even a community service contest, Rose said. The local hardware stores could donate the stove or whatever else the Murphys need, or if there's someone else in our town, and I'm sure there is, who needs help. I mean, this could be huge. Gabe nodded. Wow, guys, you are all amazing. Keegan smiled. They are indeed. So, son, do any of these things stick out in your mind? Well, 2 of them stick out the most, though I think I'd eventually like to try them all out. But I think I'm most comfortable with a martial arts summer tournament and the shooting contest. You said earlier to use my contacts. Well, I think the Kinos would join Master Apple in sponsoring a tournament, and they are some big influential contacts. And then Teen Spotter might also help if it's a teen tournament. And as far as a shooting contest, I think you're right. I could probably get Eagle Eye to sponsor, and they can put the word out. It would bring them a lot of new business. Well, it looks like you have a lot of phone calls to make, Keegan said. Yes, sir, I'll start right on it tomorrow. And don't forget, you still have some things to finish for the surprise for Jake and Lena. Oh, no, I won't forget. And don't forget the Taylor's coming in 1 week and 3 days, Lizzie said. Gabe grinned. Oh, I don't think I'd forget that. And that is the end of chapter 28.